has been a hot minute since we recorded.
It has.
Yeah, we took a little hiatus. We had lots going on.
Yeah.
Now we're back for season 2.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Okay, are you going to show me something right away?
Well, yeah, I have a little hat box. It's a tiny hat box.
It's adorable. Whoa.
That's how it's good. It's got a whole bunch of little notes in it. That's going to help me pick my next topic.
I love it. Oh my gosh, this okay. So I watch a lot of YouTube videos and I love BookTube and book talk. And Destiny Sidwell and Sarah Caroli, I think I might be saying her name wrong. I'm not really sure. They do that, letting fate decide my next TBR, or the books I read in June, and that's what it made me think of immediately. I was like, oh my god,
I need to let fate decide a lot for me because I get decision fatigue and I freeze.
That's fair.
Watch out for the persuasion clip of podcasting that we did with Michael and Ethan in a room with Scotch. Yet, right? No, they have not released it yet.
We will be reposting that. Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
It was a good time.
Yeah. And then we will be reading, or maybe you started already. Have you started?
I have started a little bit.
Okay, I haven't started yet. That's I finished a couple books while I was on my trip, and then I have one physical book that I'm reading right now, and I kind of want to slam through that and then start it. But we will be reading Interview with a Vampire. And we'll be having a little book club around Halloween time. We'll release that episode. So if you're listening now, it's the perfect time. Go get yourself a copy. Hit up those local libraries. It's one of the good places your tax dollars go. Or little local bookshop. We love them. And get yourself a copy of Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire and read along with our little Vampire and Mermaid book club.
Because I've seen the movie.
And I have not.
You've not seen the movie.
So I didn't even realize until we talked about the first time around, because we talked about this a while ago. Yeah. And we finally bought copies, and it wasn't until we talked about it that I'm like, oh my God, it's Anne Rice. And this is a tangent.
Go for it.
But what is this podcast without tangents? My only experience with Anne Rice is I used to get her very confused with Anne Rule, who, if you don't know who that is a true crime author. Oh. Yes, she wrote The Stranger Beside Me, is probably her most famous book. She has a ton of books. She's an amazing writer. The Stranger Beside Me is about Ted Bundy because she actually used to work with him. Yeah.
Ooh, ick.
Big ick, but also very fascinating that someone who had the ability to tell that story and tell it in a way that's respectful to the victims ended up having an intimate tie with it. So kind of interesting. And, my mom's going to roll her eyes so hard at this. I knew of Anne Rice. I had an aunt who was on my dad's side who loved Anne Rice and recommended Anne Rice to me and my cousins. The problem with that, and now you can probably speak to whether this was age appropriate or not, because I don't know. I was 11. My cousin was 12 and a half. And she was recommending all these Anne Rice books. And a lot of them. And I told my mom that, and she was like, no. That is inappropriate. Which, based on what I've seen of the movie, because I've seen TikTok clips,
sure,
I'd agree with that probably.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning. There's poor Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
There's a lot of underage weirdness.
Yes.
That
so
goes into it.
Good job, Mom. You made the right call. But I do remember Anne Rice, Anne Rule. I got them very confused, and my mom loves Anne Rule. So I was like, I don't like Anne Rice. Well, not but I shouldn't read Anne Rule. But you're reading Anne Rule, which I also shouldn't read at 11. But well, yeah. I was very confused.
You're like, Mom.
Yes. So I was like, wait, you told me not to read this thing, but we have a shit ton of these books around the house. That seems a little weird. Which
double standard.
Right. Mom. Which Erin, you're 12. Get the F over it. 11. So yeah, that's my experience with Anne Rice. So I'm very excited because I'm like, okay, I'm 27 today, recording on my birthday. I think I'm finally old enough to read Anne Rice.
Yeah,
so.
this was the year.
Yeah. I'm excited. So yeah, read along with us, folks. We're excited.
Yeah.
Mom, if you're listening, now's the time, maybe.
Yeah. I do have something that I will be coming up hopefully this season.
Ooh.
And it's because I'm doing my whole little box here.
Are you going to do your box the whole season?
Yes.
Whoa,
I will do my box the whole season.
I love it.
But I will also, because I'm going through, I'm only up to almost putting in F from my encyclopedia into there. Of
course, we're going alphabetical. I should have known.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But as I'm going through, if I see anything related to Dracula in one of them, they aren't going in the box. They're going on a list relating to Dracula.
Ooh.
And so I'll start doing almost a whole kind of series, I guess.
I love
boom, boom, influencing or influenced by Dracula.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm getting organized this season, guys.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Oh my gosh, that's so fun. It's funny because you were like, I made a box. And I'm like, I know how I would do it. I would flip to random pages and see something semi-cool and throw it in the box. And then Risha's like, I did it alphabetized. And I'm like, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, because if I don't, I'll forget.
You'll miss something.
No, yeah.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. But I'm just like, yep, this is why we're friends. We balance well.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm excited for the Dracula mini-sode.
Cool.
Mini-sodes.
Yeah.
Or just whole series, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I finally got a mermaid book.
Woo!
Very excited. I was in Seattle for a friend's wedding.
Oh, cool.
It's not nearly as adult as yours. Mine's a bit more whimsical. It's the Mermaid Atlas, Merfolk of the World by Anna Claiborne and Murin Azayan Laura. And it's super freaking cute. And it's just like, look at this.
Oh, the picture.
Right? It's got lots of fun designs.
Aww.
And they do different like areas of the world. There's a space mermaid thing that I'm going to have to dive into at some point, right? I'd already thought of we're recording 2 episodes today, and I already thought of those 2 topics before I got this book, but then I will be diving into this. But I finally got a book, so now I feel
That's
legit.
awesome.
Right?
I love it. Yay. Should I jump into my story
Yes.
here? Okay. So this is the Breslau vampire.
Okay.
And it was a name given to a revenant, so it's kind of got the ghosty side of vampire again, who allegedly terrorized the city of Breslau, Poland in 1591, 1592. So Breslau was a town in Silesia, and that is like a historical kind of area. It's a region, I guess. And so it was southwest Poland. It was the largest city in the historical region of Silesia. And Silesia was in like the Bohemian crown lands and until the First Silesian War in 1742 when it became Prussia.
Always
so that's
bad when
kind of
it's
the region,
first war.
Right? You have to say it's the first one instead of the great one. Yeah.
Right, yep.
It's like we're in that area of like Prussia kind of area
All
before
right.
it became Prussia. On Friday, September 20th, 1591, a shoemaker died by suicide.
A cobbler, perhaps?
A cobbler, perhaps, yes. And he cut his throat, and his wife found him.
Oh.
And instead of letting the authorities know that he did this, she took his body and washed it and made it look like he died from some sort of disease to avoid the shame.
Yep.
So he was given a Christian burial.
Because remember, different times, folks.
Right, different
Very
times.
different times.
Like, he wouldn't have been allowed a Christian burial because of that. However, weeks later, rumors were coming out about that he did this to himself, you know. And relatives were questioned by the authorities, and they were making up more different lies and stuff. And then the council was trying to figure out what action to take.
Bum, bum, bum.
And the widow and her friends were pleading with them not to exhume the body or move it. Meanwhile, while this was going on, a restless ghost that looked like the cobbler began to appear day and night.
Ooh. Don't love that.
Right. According to vampire historian Montague Summers in The Vampire in Europe, 1929, when he referred to this, he said, quote, "For this terrible apparition would sometimes stand by their bedsides, sometimes cast itself upon the midst of their beds, would lie close to them and pinch them, that not only blue marks, but plain impressions of the fingers would be upon sundry parts of their bodies in the morning," unquote.
Ooh, nope. Sundry meaning...
Supple?
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was like very personal locations or just like the arm flab.
I think it also implies that.
He was a titty squeezer?
Yeah.
All right. Oh.
Yeah.
Why is it always standing over beds?
Know.
The getting in bed, that's creepy.
That's creepy.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Kind of like that one that we talked about last season where it was the dream about the orchard and the girl and like the 7 kids and
that was in
like
the
pinching ghosts.
Yeah, I think we named that like everyone has 7 kids.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird.
And they felt here that it got weirder because he would also appear to them in the day.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Instead of it being some sort of like trick of the light at night.
So are naps not even safe, is what I'm hearing?
Yes, yeah.
Oh. I already have one scheduled for later today.
Right.
Oh.
And so this went on for 8 months.
Oh, gosh.
And the authorities eventually ordered the body to be publicly exhumed.
It's decomposed at this time, isn't it? Okay.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Sorry. Yep.
The smile. So, April 18th, 1592, they opened the grave and found the body entire.
Nope.
Not at all putrid. No ill smell about him, saving the mustiness of grave clothes. His joints were limber and flexible, and his skin only flaccid. The wound of his throat was gaping, but there was no corruption in it.
Okay, real fast interjection. First up, this is obviously pre mortician embalming.
Embalming didn't come around until the late 1800s.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then this is also shroud era, right?
Yep.
This wasn't a coffin, as you've taught me.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not like he's being protected from any of these elements. He
Right.
should be run through with worms and bacteria and bleh.
Yeah.
Fun fact about the limbs being limber. Sometimes actually, well, not sometimes, rigor mortis is when the body gets really stiff.
Right.
They've gone into rigor. That actually does wear off at a certain point. So sometimes that can lead to it looking like they never went into rigor. Yeah. Fun fact.
Oh my
gosh. Now that is creepy, and it's
Well,
I don't think it's to the same level as before they died. I'm not really sure about that, but I know they do at some point that tension starts to ease, because I think it's kind of like that chemical wears off that causes the tightening, and then also you have decomposition, so
Right.
things aren't just going to be stiff forever. But yeah, so no, rigor will eventually wear off.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's a really fun true crime case that honestly I somehow want to cover on the show. She does get found in water.
Oh.
Um,
Well, there's a connection.
right, but there is a true crime case where that actually really screwed up investigators, that and a few other things, because it was basically a body that ended up being really well preserved under very crazy circumstances.
Sure.
Very sciencey, very cool, has to do with water. And because of that, they were like, oh, she's recently been killed, but turns out it had been 50 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I might have to have a true crime corner.
That is really cool.
Right. So just when you talked about rigor, I'm like,
Whoa.
ooh,
Yeah.
but ooh, that's not
Right,
cool.
that's gross.
8 months later, that man should be not looking.
No.
You shouldn't even be able to tell how he died, especially in the 1500s.
Right? Yeah. But his corpse then, after they exhumed him, they kept him unburied until the 24th. So what is that? That's a little under
When did they uncover him?
the 18th.
Yeah, about a week, not quite.
No, yeah, 6 days.
That's gotta be traumatic.
Yeah, and a lot of people came to see it.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, that's when people went to see those kinds
Right.
of things. They're like, oh, we don't have pictures
We
of
want to go
this,
see the crime
Yeah.
scene where the family was murdered
Yeah.
and the beheadings and
We're going to go have a picnic during a war battle,
Right.
Yeah. And so then they reburied it under the gallows, but this didn't improve the situation. He actually became more violent.
oh no.
Yeah. And so then finally the widow broke down and admitted that he had died by suicide and said that the city could do with him what they thought was best.
Okay.
And so then May 7th, they dug the body up again, and it was reported that he had grown more fleshy. That was a quote, more fleshy. No, more sensibly fleshy.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Since his previous internment. And so they then dismembered him, removed his head, and cut out his heart from the back, and looked as fresh as the heart of a newly killed calf.
Specific, but all
Yep.
right.
And then they burned just different parts of his body and threw it in a sack and poured it in the river.
Oh,
Then they never saw him again.
all right. Well, I mean, good for the wife. It sucks that he ended up having to have that type of burial, but good for her for finally owning up and helping the town, because
Right.
that wasn't great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
That was the Breslau vampire.
Wow, that's a cool one. I like the little ghosty elements.
I know.
That's
That's
always
so
fun.
interesting because, vampire, the origin of the word is actually ghost monster. So it makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I have a long one and I have a short one.
Ooh.
And interestingly enough, I thought the one that ended up being short was going to be long, and I thought vice versa. So would you like the long one or the short one?
I would like the short one.
Okay, perfect. I was kind of hoping you'd say that because I'm really excited about the long one. I'm going to talk a little bit about conch shells.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. All I think about is the Lord of the Flies.
I haven't read it.
Okay.
I need to?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, those of you who don't know, the conch shell, it's often depicted with mermaids. I just see them in a lot of like depictions of mermaids or sea goddesses. I think Aphrodite has one at one point in some of her symbols. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. So I was going to talk about that, and then at some point also do a little one on pearls and just the different.
Yay!
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of a fun mermaid adjacent. Conch shells, I'm not going to get super into the science aspect of them because I was planning on focusing more on the symbolism, which there ended up being some, but not as much as I expected. So that's why it's a little shorter. But a conch shell, or conch, is a large spiral-shaped marine gastropod mollusk.
Gastropod.
Gastropod means they have one foot.
So they can kind of
pod. Yeah. Yep, gastro and pod. So they can kind of just drag themselves along like the seafloor.
Like a mollusk? Is that no?
It is a mollusk. Yep, it is a type of mollusk. It's a gastropod mollusk. I know. So they have that large spiral-shaped shell that you often see people like blowing through in movies. I think it's featured in Moana quite a bit, actually. And it's a common name for many marine snails. I'm specifically talking about like the very iconic one that you see with like the spiral and the big opening that people like put to their ears and listen to the ocean and like blow through as a horn and has all the little like horns coming off of it. That's what I'm envisioning.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind this refers to a broad category. They have many different uses, as I kind of alluded to already. We're going to talk a little bit about the sacred objects first, because there are a couple of different religions or areas, because they are found widely throughout different parts of like oceanic culture. So like I don't think they're just in the Pacific or in the Atlantic. I think they're found through a bunch of different areas. I could be wrong because I didn't write that down, but I think I remember reading that. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the Caribbean, they are a symbol of freedom and resistance. They were specifically used to communicate and deceive in guerrilla warfare. This was also in like the Haiti region too. So that's part of the Caribbean, I believe. But Haiti specifically had a war at one point where they used that frequently to communicate during war. Yeah. So because of that, it got that symbolism of resistance, which is kind of fun and also alludes to the fact that it makes a lot of noise and can be very interesting. You can actually change the pitch of it too, which I didn't know. I thought you just blew into them and it made whatever sound it made, but it turns out based on where you place your lips and your tongue, you can change the pitch. So I imagine they also use that for communication. Isn't that cool? Yeah. So, and I don't know as far as the deceive part, but I imagine maybe just kind of deceiving other armies or other enemies of where they were, potentially. And then in Hindi and Buddhist culture, they also have a lot of meaning, which I did not know. Hindi, specifically the left turning shells, so they kind of have that spiral, are used as articles of prayer and used to hold holy water. The right spiraling shells are actually seen as one of the 8 auspicious symbols for Buddhists and Hindus.
You know, I tend to forget how much water India has around, like how much coastline they have.
I kind of do too. Yeah. But yeah, it's obviously because that's where the majority of Hindu people live, I believe, is India. And I did too, because it's like I don't picture those two things together, but it makes sense just based off the location. And then I'm going to probably butcher the pronunciation of this, but Hindi consider the conch shells, they call them the shankha. It's Shankha, and it's considered a symbol of purity, brilliance, and auspiciousness. You'll see that word auspicious a lot. We like that, apparently. The sound is associated with the sacred symbol Om, and it's believed to be the first sound of creation. And I believe that's also where, like, when you Om during, like, yoga comes from, because that's also considered a, like, more religious act, not just a physical act in a lot of cultures. Yeah. So those are just a couple of the religions and cultures that use them as sacred objects. I'm sure there are more. That's just what popped up in my research. And then some other uses for conch shells. They are very frequently used as decoration. So when I went to Florida, I remember seeing there just a ton just placed on like bookshelves and on the centerpiece with other shells. And it was very cool. They also can be used to self-decorate and self-adorn with jewelry. Some areas I saw referred to conch shells as poor man's ivory because it was a cheaper way to make necklaces and bracelets.
Okay.
Which is cool, I guess. But also that's just a really, really pretty kind of, some of them are pink, some are a little more purpley, some are more iridescent. They're just gorgeous on their own. They don't need to be compared to anything in my mind. The Cayman Islands actually use them as boundary markers. So they'd use conch shells to mark like the boundary of their garden, or they'd put them on walls to mark their area.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. So kind of decoration, kind of function. The Taino, Taino people use them as tools for just about everything. They use them as cutting apparatuses, digging apparatuses. They'd sharpen and cut them and use them for, food making, food eating, scavenging, kind of everything you could come up with, which is cool because the shells are also, you can change their shape and you can break them, obviously, but they are pretty strong. And it's also a great natural resource because they're often fished for their meat, which leads me to food. They are a low-fat, high-protein source of food, that mollusk in the inside.
Oh, sure.
So not the shell, obviously.
Right. I was kind of like,
Yep, but the gastropod mollusk in the inside. Yeah. It's full of vitamins and minerals, too. It's like super high in vitamin E, selenium, lots of really good stuff. So it's actually super healthy. I actually had conch once. It was with my mama. Shout out to Mom. We were on a cruise and we stopped on an island, and I don't remember what island it was. I'm sorry. But you could see people out fishing conch shells, and it was super cool because you'd see them in these little boats and they'd just start pulling up like a net or something. They're kind of far away and I didn't have my glasses on. And they'd just have this knife and they'd flick the meat out really quick, and they'd throw the meat in one pile and the shell in the other pile, and it was crazy how fast they could do it. And so we were watching that when we were getting off the boat, and then we found this tiny little trailer, which like never could have been in the US because there's no way it met food standards, but it was this teeny little trailer. The kitchen inside was like basically a deep fryer and like some tubs, like storage tubs that she was using to like mix food. And all of the locals were in line for this place. My mom and I were like, you know what, let's do it. Let's find out what this is. And it was fried conch shell balls, or not conch shell, conch meat balls. So it was basically cut up meat with this really flavored, almost like hush puppy batter. And then she fried them and stuck little toothpicks in them, and you could eat them. And they were so good. Oh my gosh, like I dream of those to this day. They were incredible. So obviously they're used in a bunch of other dishes than just, deep fried. I'm sure that's very Americanized or probably catering to a certain group of people getting off a cruise ship. Now the shell can technically be used as food as well, just not for people, for plants.
Oh, okay.
It can be ground up and used as fertilizer. It is a calcium carbonate, which is needed in a lot of soil types, but it's biologically grown, which is cool because it's not a chemical, it's a natural resource. So we love that. Think like eggshells too, how they're good for your garden. Kind of same thing. You just have to grind them up a little different. Some cultures use them as shell money, as an exchange of currency. Makes sense, right? I don't know why I never thought of that before, but makes sense. And last but not least, musical instruments. New Zealand specifically uses a wooden mouthpiece attached to the conch shell. And they use it, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher how you say this, but I'll spell it too, and I'm sorry. That instrument is called a putatara, Putatara, and it's used to welcome guests at traditional ceremonies.
So they add like a reed to it?
Yeah, essentially. It said wooden mouthpiece, so I don't know if that's more of like a trumpet mouthpiece or more of a reed.
Wooden, yeah.
Right. I'm not sure which.
I don't feel like you could like vibrate like a trumpet through wood.
Right. So I feel like you'd have to have it more of a reed type.
So they turned it into a woodwind.
Basically, yeah. Yeah, so pretty cool. That's what I have on conch shells. I have a little bit, we'll just talk a little bit about the mermaids and why they're probably related to mermaids, and we see them depicted. Likely it's just because of geography. The areas that mermaids are seen is the ocean, and there are shells in the ocean. I don't know why I was expecting like some lore. Like I was expecting like a cool story about it, and I couldn't find anything.
Well, doesn't like Ariel's mom Athena have one or something at one point?
Yeah, and I didn't get too far into that, but I think so. Nothing popped up in the first like 3 pages of Google, so I was just like, whatever. I also maybe did all my research last night because I'm a procrastinator, and I had plenty of time. I planned this out. However, the one that we'll talk about in the next episode, I thought was going to be a 10-minute thing, and I fell down a rabbit hole, and I read into this for like over an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So then by the time I got to the conch shell, I was like, if you're not in the first 3 pages of Google, I just can't. But I couldn't find any major lore about mermaids and conch shells, which was interesting. I found a lot about like the religion and Hindi and Buddhist opinions on it, which was super cool. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's more just geography that they're pictured with. And also they're the symbol of, that purity, auspiciousness. Some people compare the conch shell to, you listen, you hear the ocean.
Aquamarine?
Aquamarine. Yep, they talk about it in that.
Yeah,
That'll be coming up
that's
soon
a
too, hopefully.
phone.
Yep, they use it as a phone to communicate.
Oh, yep.
And there is some symbolism where the spirals and intricacies of the conch shell also symbolize like the intricacies and depths of the ocean. So that can also be part of it. I will hopefully be covering aquamarine soon. I do have that book, so I want to do a 2-part for the book and the movie. So that'll be coming up, hopefully.
That's a fun one.
I'm very excited. I love that one. Go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Vamps and Mers. You can send emails to Vamps A-N-D, I can't talk, Vamps and Mers at gmail.com. Let us know what you're interested in hearing next or any stories.
Check out the other Tapestry Network shows.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Michael and Ethan in a room with Scotch. Keep an eye out for our featured episode.
Persuasion. Yeah.
Because if you didn't know, Risha's a bit of a Jane Austen fan.
A little bit.
And until then, stay thirsty and keep wet.
Cover your necks and watch your tails.
Obscurantism and obfuscation.
Orally observed, gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Gentle listener.
Obviated objects of oblivion.
Obambulating about.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
Offered unto you.
In the Tapestry Radio Network.
TapestryRadio.org.
From our fancy to yours.